The Treaty 4 territory covers nearly a quarter of the province of Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba. For many years, the 35 nations within have met at the center of the territory, at an area once known as the Gathering Place, Fort Qu'Appelle, Saskatchewan. It was here on September 15, 1874, the leaders Muscapiti, Kakawishta, Pasqua, and others signed Treaty 4.
Treaty 4, we always say is an international agreement. It was signed between sovereigns, between nations, but more importantly, it was a covenant. It was a covenant between the Creator, all our grandmothers and grandfathers, and the Indigenous people on one side, and then the Crown, the non-Indigenous people on the other side. You've got so many different kinds of treaties. So which ones are you referring to? For us, it's Treaty Number 4, the Victorian treaties. Alexander Morris was the Queen's representative, the Crown's representative, that was appointed to come out and consecrate a very important agreement with the chiefs and leadership across Western Canada, across the Northwest Territories, right? That's what happened. One of those key pieces as well was in exchange for sharing that land, and in exchange for that principle of peaceful coexistence and mutual respect between our peoples. We see things like civilize, assimilate, and terminate our rights as Indigenous peoples, and us as Indigenous peoples. You see the cultural genocide via the residential schools. You see the colonialism and the control via the Indian Act. Yet we still survive as Indigenous peoples. We're still here, and we say we're going to thrive. The Crown recognized the inherent right to self-determination, because as Indigenous peoples we have our own land, we have our own laws, our own languages, our own identifiable population, and our own identifiable forms of government. Things that qualify for the international right to self-determination to be recognized. And so those chiefs used that right and entered into a treaty, an international agreement with the Crown and right of Great Britain. Well, what does that mean? The spirit and intent to a good education, a good livelihood. Nowadays it means K-12, post-secondary education, technical vocational skills training, all of the above. Because that now becomes our buffalo. Education becomes our buffalo. That was recognized, the spirit and intent to education. Our avocations of hunting, fishing, trapping, and gathering were all promised. We're all promised as part of this treaty arrangements. That what we're offering you, Indian people, your way of life will not be altered. What we're offering, Alexander Morris offered these words, we're putting on top of your way of life, in addition to your way of life. And that's important to recognize.
Since their signing, the interpretation and implementation of these treaties have challenged governments on all sides. Despite this, Treaty 4 nations and neighboring communities continue to gather and celebrate the signing of Treaty 4. This annual week-long gathering serves as an opportunity for the Treaty 4 communities to share contemporary knowledge and skills while passing on the traditional knowledge and culture of Treaty 4 nations.
One of those other articles of treaty is the chief's suit. And that chief's suit of clothing was very important, because that was part of the treaty discussions, treaty dialogue. A suitable suit of clothing will be provided to the chief. And when you look at a chief's uniform, it's symbolic of that treaty relationship with the Crown. It's symbolic in recognition of that authority and power as a chief of his tribe, of his nation. That it's vested in that chief. And so that chief's suitable suit of clothing is promised as per the treaty. And when you look at that chief's uniform, you see the stripes on the arms, very high office. You see the brass buttons that recognize and have the Crown's insignia. Again, our relationship with the Crown is very key, very key. We have our Treaty 4 flag song that talks about the Great White Mother providing this flag that will flutter in the wind forever. It was a flag that was promised. It was a Union Jack, and there's songs made up of that. So the relationship with the sovereign is key. It's linked to the crown, it's linked to that nation-to-nation relationship, and it's reflected in that chief suit. We are part of that treaty, we're part of it, you know, as sovereign people. We're one half of it, the other half the non-Indigenous peoples, but more importantly, the relationship with the Creator. And that's why we say there's a sanctity of contract, a sanctity of agreement, and it's a covenant that can never be broken, and you always hear, as long as the sun shines, the rivers flow and the grass grows. It's important to recognize that these are in perpetuity. And to our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters, you have the rights to use the land. You're treaty people as well. So in exchange for the right to use that land and the farms and the ranches and everything else that's been developed in Canada as a nation's successor state, there are obligations to our people. Education, healthcare, hunting, fishing, trapping, gathering, the annuities, all of the above. We just need now to find a way to get them honored and implemented and enforced according to their spirit and intent, their understanding of what was promised to our people and our chiefs at that time.